Hi, I'm David Belitski, former Kitchener Ranger goaltender, and we're here with Club 63 podcast with Rob DeCiantis, my good old buddy.
How you doing, Blitz? Everything good?
Good. Everything's good.
Good to see you, man. It's virtually, which is not the real thing, but better than nothing, I suppose.
I see you there in your office there, work there, eh? You look, I got that boxing glove hung up in the back back corner there in the architect table. Right on, buddy.
How's things going? For all my fights in Kitchener.
Well, I remember after you came back from your shoulder surgery. I think you fought Bootland.
Bootland, yeah. He closed my eye with one punch.
I think I saw Danny Liebold on the bench when you just came back and he was screaming something like no, and you dropped the mitts, and luckily everything was okay.
I dropped the mitts, and he I remember that fight, and Bootland hit me once, closed my eye instantly, and I just hung on for dear life and eventually get back to the penalty box. And then I come to the bench after the 5 minutes, and the Bolt is looking at me like, are you kidding me? You're getting in a fight? And, that was pretty funny because obviously I wasn't a fighter, so to get in a fight in the first day back, oh wow, not a good decision, but whatever, it is what it is. So I'm here in my office. I'm just I guess we're going to talk a little bit about what we're doing these days. So I run a company called Corlan Electric. My dad started it 26 years ago. He's now retiring any day now. I've basically been here for 17 years and running it.
Orazio.
Yeah, he's hanging them up, man. He's hanging up his tools.
Wow.
So he's done. So I've basically been running it for the better part of a decade now. So it's been good, man. This is what I've been wanting to do. I've been wanting to kind of work for myself since the dream of playing in the NHL died. So that's what I'm doing.
Business is good.
Yeah, with the pandemic, obviously it's slowed down a little bit, and it hasn't been the greatest, but just because of the circumstances. But the way I look at it and the way I talk to my staff about is we've kept the doors open, and for the most part, everybody's been employed. We got a staff about 40 people. So for the most part, everybody's been employed and able to feed their families and pay their mortgages and whatever they got to do. So I consider that a success, and I consider that to be a pretty good achievement and something I think we should be proud of. So, a lot of businesses aren't able to function, not able to stay open, and we've been able to do that. So I consider that a success. So it's been good. So yeah. What about you? What's going on in your life? Tell us about your life.
Yeah, I don't know. We stopped playing and then came back, and we moved up to Barrie. So I live in Barrie now. Met my wife in Germany when we were there, and we got 4 kids. You got 2 boys, right?
No, I got a boy and a girl.
Boy and a girl, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got, we live up here, and started a goalie school shortly after I stopped playing. That's been good. Actually, you know what? You were my first team that I was actually ever given, I think. So
there you go.
That's how long ago that was. That would have
I was coaching.
97 Toronto Red Wings. Is that right?
That's exactly what that was. Yeah, coached the 97 Toronto Red Wings.
Mr. Tomasi was my goalie. Remember Tomasi? Yes.
I do.
I think we had Sirocco, Joseph Sirocco kid. So dude, that's a long time ago. So we've been, obviously, unfortunately, with the pandemic, things haven't been great as far as getting ice and stuff like that. So it's been, I feel kind of bad for the kids all involved with just being able to get out and play. Kids from all the ages. I mean, you've got kids, I've got kids that play hockey, and unfortunately they're not able to do that. And even with the OHL and stuff like that, it's kind of tough. Kind of feel a lot for these kids, obviously playing in the league, and guys in their draft year or guys in last year, and not knowing what to do. And hopefully they start up and they can get some sort of a season going. I would right.
100%. Imagine being in that situation where you're trying to make the draft list and get drafted or go on to some level of pro or whatever it is, and you can't even play. You can't even press the scouts, and you may or may not have had a good year last year, and you can't do anything. That would be, and you've worked your whole life to get there. It'd be devastating. I can't even imagine. And I've talked to Bertie about it a few times, and it's like, what are these poor kids doing? Like, how are they impressing scouts? How are they able to keep in shape just in case the season does go? And I mean, obviously that doesn't look like it's going to happen, but it's an unfortunate situation, but it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, I know. It's you've been getting on the ice much at all, or no? Like, as
No,
far
no.
like, do you still play at all, or
No, a little bit of men's league here and there, just once or twice a week, but that not even actually. I mean, pre-pandemic, obviously, but I don't think I've put on my skates maybe once since the pandemic, and just skated around with my son. But that's about it. Yeah, nothing at all. I just, for whatever reason, it is what it is.
you excited today? Masters starts today. Hey, you all fired up?
I'm super pumped.
Right?
Super pumped. Absolutely.
You look like you're in better shape now than when you played. Look at you, man.
Yeah, well, the pandemic hit, and I was getting a little fat pre-pandemic there, and I bought myself a Peloton and set up a home gym, and I've been trying to get at it. Yeah, I think I can play right now. I'm in better shape now than when I was 20 years old.
I know, it's funny. You see a lot of the guys like that. You know what I was thinking when Birchie and we got the email from Cole saying we were going to do this, I started to think about some of the times we had back then. It's hilarious how you think about like how long it's been. Like, yeah. It's been, what are we like it's
been 25 years.
My birthday was in February. My wife is she was preparing like a happy birthday thing, and obviously with everything going on, you couldn't really do anything. And I'm like, I'm turning 42 or 43. I thought, okay, 40. Dude, I'm 44.
You're 44.
Like, I lost a year of my life. Like,
yeah.
It's like I really thought I was 43. I thought I was turning 43. So I started thinking about all this. So what's that been? 43.
So you started at 16, right? You joined Kitchener?
16, but I mean, like, roughly when we played, I mean, that's like what,
25 years, man.
25 years. Like, that's do you remember the time we were at Casey's after a game? Do you remember Jared Burnett?
Of course, remember. Yeah.
So
the tough
remember,
guy.
Remember that was the time when they came out with Adam Sandler. Remember he came out with that CD and those songs.
Yeah,
I don't know if you were there. I'm pretty sure. But we used to go to Casey's after the game by the mall.
Yeah, I remember that.
And
every Friday night.
Every Friday night. And we'd sit there with our parents. When our parents would be drinking beer, we'd be having nachos or whatever. They'd pay for the bill, and they had this DJ up there. You remember when he took that CD? Remember? I can't remember exactly, but it was there. It was that CD that Adam Sandler came out with, and he gave it. And the song starts off really, really, really good. And it's really nice, and then it just goes completely offside. So the guy goes up and he plays it, and the place is just packed, and it's just blaring through the whole restaurant. And then he leaves the booth and he goes away because the song went on and we got him to play it. And if anybody knows the song I'm talking about, you got a picture of Casey's completely full, and this guy must have left to go to the bathroom, and nobody could turn this off. It was going on and on just through the whole bar. Anyways, it was hilarious. There was families,
awesome.
There was people at the bar side. I started thinking about stuff like that.
Yeah, when you think about those days, like it's the stories and it's 25 years ago, so the memories kind of fade a little bit, but some of the things that we did, and just such a young age, I tell this story not this story, but this kind of scenario all the time, where I got a 9-year-old boy. So in theory, in 7 years, like, you went off to Kitchener at 16, I was 17, but in 7 years, you're just saying, here you go, get on with life. And I can't even imagine doing that to my kid. And I can't, like, not in a bad way, don't get me wrong. In a very good way, actually, but being able to kind of cut that cord as a parent, and realizing the implications that would have on the kid is something kind of surreal, almost. Like, I can't imagine what my parents were. And now, like, I'm looking back, my mom was crying when I would decide to go to Kitchener, and I'm like, what are you crying about? Like, it's not a big deal. I'm a grown man.
Yeah, I mean, you guys were you're very strong Italian family. I mean, your mom was like, I remember after our first year, like, we used to go run together sometimes.
Yeah,
And
sure
I
we
don't
did.
know. That was probably Ward. That was probably Wardy just telling you to keep an eye on me, making sure that I'm traded. But
Well, we were doing the boxing. Remember the boxing? We'd go to
yeah,
the boxing place
yeah,
in
we go to the
Brampton. Yeah,
boxing place, and
yeah.
that was after your first year. You had a phenomenal first year, and I still remember training camp. I mean, I know we're jumping back and forth. It's just hilarious. It brings up so many different memories. But I remember seeing your dad at training camp, and you absolutely what were you, 10th round pick?
11th.
11th round pick.
Yeah, 11th
And you
round.
absolutely shattered training camp. Like, it was
Yeah.
unbelievable. And I remember seeing your old man. Your old man was like, it was so overwhelming for him in the hallway. He's like, yeah, he's doing, like they want to talk to us. They want to do this. And anyways, you ended up making the team and again, we used to train sometimes in the summertime. And I remember you were trying to bulk up. So, I don't know, how heavy can we be at 17 years old, right? And I remember after our workout, we're sitting at your dining table in your house, and your mom had made pasta, and you were eating something, and I think somebody else was with us, and you were like, Ma, I need some subs or something like that, and you, I think you crushed two 12-inch subs on top of that. And well, you're like, gotta bulk up. And that was the time, right? Like, everybody was like crushing protein powder at that time, creatine. And
don't you remember we used to go to the mall at lunch at the Subway there, and we'd grab I don't know if it was every day, but it seemed like it was almost every day. And we'd take the subs on the bus. We would go to, wherever we'd go, we'd take a foot long, we'd eat it at 5 o'clock before 7 o'clock puck drop. And you're like, crushing a 12-inch sub. Now, if I have a sub, I can't move for 2 hours.
I'll take a 6, please. Yes.
Yeah. I remember that. It's funny you bring up when we started, Joe McDonnell was the coach, if you remember back then. And he ended up getting fired my rookie year. But I made camp, but I made the team in camp. But I came to camp with 2 pairs of shorts and basically a pair of jeans just in case we went out or whatever. And then Joe says, there was the 48-hour rule back then. Remember that? Like, if you stayed at camp longer than 48 hours, you weren't eligible for an NCAA scholarship. And that was as an 11th round pick. And the team was good. It was ranked 9th in the country at the time. I don't know if you remember that, but it was, I remember going in there, it was like, this is a legit team. The Kitchener Rangers this year is going to be awesome with all the vets coming back, Trevor Gallant and Eric Manlow and Jason Gladney and all this other stuff. And we had a really good team. And then Joe offers me a spot. And I'm like, what do I do now? I'm not expected to make this team. And I really basically had 24 hours to decide the rest of my life. And my dad looked at me like a deer in headlights. And looking back, he was younger than I am now. And he's saying, I don't know what to do. Like, you have to figure this out. And, thankfully it worked out. But it was a surreal experience. So I got to cut this for a second. These things are beeping. I think I'm running out of battery.
Costco's got batteries on sale, eh?
Technical difficulties. No.
Always got to be prepared. You know what Geoff Ward always told us? Failing to prepare is preparing to fail.
All right. Well,
Did you hear me there?
I did not know. What'd you say?
Always got to be prepared, Desi. Failing to prepare is preparing to fail.
Seriously, hey? Did you get that from Geoff Ward?
Yeah, you didn't hear me. That's what I just said.
Yes. I didn't know.
Yes.
Let's tell us about your story. Tell us when you started and your experience as a 16-year-old kid, and that's where you were a kid. I remember you playing against you growing up, and then you went and played a year up, and Pee Wee and minor Bantam and all that stuff, and you end up in Kitchener as a 16-year-old stud. Tell us about some of that stuff.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, it was crazy times back then, man. It was I think I was just finished Pee Wee, and then I played up a year at 14 with the Marlies. I played up a year in my minor Bantam year. I played Bantam, and then from there, I don't know if anybody remembers the Royal York Rangers Tier 2 team. So they were an expansion team in the league, and I ended up playing there as a 15-year-old. And I mean, I guess stuff like that doesn't really happen today anymore, right? Like, you don't see too many, being in the hockey world and being around it. I mean, there's not too many people that are playing tier 2 at minor midget, or if that even happens anymore. So I mean, I think me and Alan McCulley were the 15-year-olds that ended up playing in that that league. But yeah, I got drafted as an underage that year, and ended up going to Kitchener, and it was I had all the expectations of making the team, and they had drafted, I think, Jeff Lilly, who was a year older than me, and he was the hearing impaired goalie, and they were making, he was a great goalie. He was, I think I think I was a second rounder. I think they took him in the 4th or 5th. And I remember showing up to camp, and I was like, oh man, I'm going to make this team. And I opened the paper up the next day, and the whole paper is about Jeff Lilly. And I'm like, geez, this is going to be, maybe this isn't a sure thing, or maybe, I got to change some of the, my approach here. So it was very difficult how I handled that. And there was only one thing that I wanted to do. And, my dream was to play for the Kitchener Rangers. But I remember starting our first exhibition game, which was in London, which it was against London. And how when you show up to the rink and the lineups on the board, and it's written up, right? So after practice, I see my name, and I start the first game, and we play London Knights at home, and my parents come up with my sister, and we're all watching, and game goes over. I think we lost like 5-3, and anyways, I was so nervous, right? So the next day we're playing London in London, and there was myself, there was Jeff Lilly, there was CJ Denemy, there was Daryl White, and myself. There was 4 goalies, and I just assumed the next day that I was playing. So I think the bus left at 12 o'clock, and all the veterans were practicing at 10. So I just assumed that I was in the lineup. So I'm 16 years old. I'm sleeping at my billets, and I get a phone call. I at like 9:50. Where are you? And I wake up, and I'm like, what do you mean? And it's Rick Chambers, our trainer. He's like, well, all the guys and all the veterans are on the ice. Trevor Gallant, Gladney, Norm Dezane, all these guys. Yeah. And I'm this 16-year-old kid who's supposed to be on the ice taking pucks with these guys, and they're shooting with no goalie in net. And I hopped into the Blue Bomber, and I just bolted. I bolted to the rink. I bolted to the rink, and I'm getting dressed, and Joe McDonnell walks in. He looks at me, and he goes, "Would you wake up?" And I looked, and I'm like, I was so scared and so terrified. I don't think any puck touched my pads that rest of that practice. I think I jumped on for 15 minutes. Everything was at my head. It was all the 19, 20-year-olds. So as we're going to the bus to leave to go to the game, because we ate at Eastside Mario's. Everybody eats at Eastside Mario's back then, the salad and bread. Yeah. I'm like, I got to do something. Like, I got to, like, this is going to get me kicked off the team. I stroll up behind Joe McDonnell, going to the bus with his briefcase, and I go, Joe, I'm sorry, I messed up. It'll never happen again. And he looks at me and he goes, attaboy, kid. Wow. And yeah, man, 16 years old. It's funny, like, when you talk about that, though, like, our kids, like, I look at my kids too, like, I don't know, man. I think it was, maybe we were wired different. Maybe we 100%. Maybe we look at things completely different, looking at our kids having to go away. Maybe the time is different as well. And, but it was what a blast, man. We had a blast. Yeah. Like, those were the best 4 years. I mean, that I played. Like, they were like, buddies for life, really, like, with all the guys on the team, and you stay in touch with, and you drift apart for a while. Like, we haven't talked for a while, but guys like that you're in touch with, and and you basically live with these people for the whole season, right? And
Well, 100%. You go into that first season, you're basically asked to move and go to high school and everything else, and you don't know anybody. Like I happen to kind of knew you, not really. Like I knew of you. We played against each other, but we were never really on the same team. We weren't friends, but I kind of knew who you were. I remember Luch Nasato. I knew him, so he got drafted that year. So I was able at least to go to training camp knowing one guy. But a lot of times, like guys come from Sault Ste. Marie or Ottawa or wherever they came from, and they come into the team and they don't know us. They don't know a single person.
Yeah.
And they're asked, and the way I look at it, and I've had this conversation with lots of guys over the years, you become brothers. I mean, it's as simple as that. Like you're now, your family basically, because you don't have another family. And mine, you and I are fortunate from Mississauga. Our families were able to come up and see us every now and again.
Yeah.
But if a guy like Paul Trainer, who's from the Sioux, his family wouldn't get that opportunity, and so he's stuck. A guy like him is stuck, not knowing, and you're going to have to just become friends and brothers, like I said, with everybody. So, I think you're right. You're friends for life, no matter what. Like I still to this day, have a lot of guys from that team that I wouldn't say regularly, but every so often we touch base with a text or a play around of golf or something like that. And, you don't skip a beat. It's like, I haven't seen you in a year, just similar to you and I right now. Like, we haven't talked in maybe a year or so, a year and a bit.
Yeah.
And you can just pick up like nothing happened. And it's awesome, man. It's cool friendship with some people.
You mentioned Luch Nasato. Do you remember when he showed up to training camp? He was he had the heart of a lion. He was an absolute like animal. And there's nothing like I played with him on growing up. Like, I mean, we all played against each other since we were probably 9, right?
Yeah,
all
8 or 9, absolutely.
Like, we used to play on the spring team and all that stuff. But I will never forget when we were doing the shuttle run in training camp. It was the same as yours, and he literally showed up with his shoes, shorts, and a shirt, and his hockey. He didn't have anything else with him, and his shoes were the old Converse low tops, and they had holes in them. So he literally, his toes were hanging out of his shoes, going back and forth at the shuttle run, and I think like there was something. I think he had like been living away from home too, like before he ended up going. Like these like types of characters that were showing up, and he carved out a real good career for himself, man. Yeah. Up in Barrie here, I mean, like I remember playing him in playoffs, man. The guy never came off the ice.
Yeah, he was a fan favorite for sure, no question. Yeah, because after the first year, he didn't get much playing time, I don't think, Kitchener, and then he ended up getting picked up on the expansion draft, right?
Yeah.
Barrie came around. Yeah. I think as an example, I think he's on the all-time list or something like that. All favorites or something along those lines for the Colts. So I
think we played them in that first series that we played them in playoffs, and I think somebody had mentioned that they had to have him hooked up to an IV or something after the game because he was so dehydrated. Like he was, and this is back then, like this is 1990, 94, 95, right? Like it was
probably 96. It was my second year because we played them. We were down. I don't know if you remember that series. We were down 3-1 in games.
Yeah.
And then we were down. And then so we ended up going to game 7. We fought back those 2 games. Go to game 7, and we were down 3-0 in that game. And we end up winning 4-3. I don't know if you remember that, but that's that's honestly through my whole career, that series is probably the one series that stands out to me the most, because I remember we were so defeated, not defeated as far as like, but it was like, I remember the 2 games in Barrie that we lost in overtime, and it was like double overtime. And it was just like, I think we got back to the auditorium, and we were down. It was 3-1. That was a series that put them up 3-1. We stroll into the odd.
and I think it was like 1:30 in the morning, maybe even 2, because the game had lasted so long. And Wardy's like, the whole odd was pitch black. I don't know if you remember this.
I think I know where you're going with this story.
Wardy goes, get everybody on the bench.
On the bench. I remember
and
this.
We had our pillows. We were down 3-1 in the series. We should be winning. And the only thing you could see in the odd, if you could picture the odd, is the exit lights. That was the only thing you could see.
Yeah.
And he comes out, and we're all sitting on the bench, and I all just want to go home. 2-1 double overtime loss. We're like, this is the second time it happened. We're like, and he fires up the propane flame. And
the torch.
The torch. And he puts the torch in the middle ice.
Right at center.
And then he starts talking about the players we got on the team, the leaders, and he wouldn't have anybody else, and he believes in everybody. And then he turns the light. He left the flame going the whole time. And then he walks over and he turns it off, and he goes, that's going to be, that's the end of your season if you guys don't find a way to come together.
Something, it was like that. I tell you, that was, I do remember that. I remember that happening. And I remember the boys, I think we sat on the bench for like, 10, 15 minutes after that and just stared at the ice, and it was just black and we couldn't see anything, but nobody wanted to move. Like it was one of those, nobody wanted to be the first guy to get it. We all wanted to get up because we were so tired, but nobody wanted to be that guy. And we just sat there and we came back. You're right. It was like,
and you're right. We were down. I remember that because Barrie scored 2 goals in the first. Yeah. It was 2 or 3-0 for sure.
It was 3-0 because
you guys, you and Pepperell had this play all the time. It was offensive zone. It was you know what I'm saying, right? It was to the left of the goalie if you're looking at me, and Pepperell was a righty. You would literally, you're a lefty, you go right through the legs or you tap it to the side. You literally go around, pick the puck up, Pepperell, go to the side, and you dish in. I think you guys did that a couple times during the playoff time. I mean, it was I don't know if it was a set play. I mean, I'm not involved with what you guys are doing, but it was incredible, man. Like, you guys used to, what a great line. What a great memory, man.
Yeah, those were great. I remember that story was awesome in that series. And, you mentioned Pep, and like we're still buddies to this day. Like that's one of the examples of, again, somebody I haven't seen or talked to in a while. And he texted me a couple weeks ago and he's like, hey, this obviously pre this shutdown, but he's like, my son's playing in Brampton. I'm going to come, I'll give you a shout next time I come out there. And I'm like, absolutely. And I'll just drop what I'm doing, like literally drop what I'm doing and go see him and see his kid play or whatever. Like it's friendships you make, that kind of, like we said, it's awesome. And I wouldn't do that for most people, but somebody I played in Kitchener with, it'd be like, and my wife would understand. She'd be like, okay, yeah, you got to go. Like, no problem. We'll just stop what we're doing and go see your buddy. And does your daughter play hockey? Does your daughter do anything? She doesn't.
Your boy's 9 and your daughter's what?
My daughter's 10. She's 10. No, she's a year older. Yeah. So she doesn't play hockey. She played for a few years, 4, 5, and 6, I think, something like that. And then she didn't really like it, so she gave it up. So she's more artistic. So she's into like dance and art stuff and drawing and stuff like that. So she's really, really taken a liking to that. My son plays hockey and he played hockey and soccer and he's more of an athletic kind of kid. He played with Joe Birch was his coach last year, actually, which is kind of full circle. Like Birchie had a team. We ran into each other and he's coaching the team, same age. And I said, why don't you have a look at my son? And sure enough, he puts him on the team. And
nice. First time power play or no?
No, it was a pretty good team. That team was stacked. I think there might be some future pros on that team for sure. I mean, they're 9, but
it's unreal how good these kids are so early. So honestly, I'm blowing
there was a kid that's got a better slap shot than I do, and he was 8 years old. It's crazy, like hitting the glass with a slap shot, 8 years old. I'm like, I can't do that.
You wouldn't have been able to do it with the Sherwood
those sticks,
full wood sticks.
The Featherlight, the Sherwood Featherlights.
Remember when we had the Reebok pump skates? Remember that? Remember those?
Oh, those were huge, man.
Oh yeah,
huge. Yeah.
What's your favorite memory, or what's a memory that you would have been able to kind of, I don't know. Now that we're talking about, and then jump in your head that you're able to talk about.
Well, there's a lot that I'm not able to talk about, that's for sure. But we all have those little secrets. I got a few, like some are good or some are bad. Kind of a bad one, I guess, is my rookie year. We're playing Sudbury in the playoffs, and they're stacked. Like they got, and we were weak. That. We were rebuilding. We had traded away all our vets, and they were crazy good. And so they're up 3-0. We're playing like 3 games to nothing. We're playing in Kitchener game 4. And I end up scoring the game-winning goal. We win 2-1 or something like that.
Yeah.
And so now we got to go back game 5. We got to go to Sudbury, and everybody, we know we're losing the game. Like it's, if not the game, we're losing the series. Like there's no chance. We're driving 5-hour trip to Sudbury, and everybody's looking at me so pissed off that I scored that goal. Like, thanks a lot, Desi. We got to go play this game. We're driving all the way to Sudbury, and I think we lost 7-1 or something. Like, they just shellacked us.
They were unbelievable.
Yeah,
they were. I don't know how they didn't win it that year. They were absolutely
just studs. Stacked. Yeah, like there was guys.
Morrow.
Yeah.
Rivers,
Senior, Nedved, Rivers, Wilson. Nedved. They were stupid good.
Benedam, remember?
Benedam, yeah, absolutely.
He's up here.
Yeah, he lives up your way.
Yeah,
good guy. Good player. Very good player.
Did you play with him?
I did not. No. We
just played against each other.
Yeah, played against each other a lot. But, with just mutual respect. I've run into him a few times, talked to him a few times, and just, good guy. Like, we just, like nothing. But, your enemy's on the ice, but your buddy's off the ice every time. No question about it. Who are some of the names you still keep in touch with? Actually, no, let's do this first. Give me your story.
Oh, geez. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, what can we talk about? What can we not talk about? I mean, there's so many. I mean, what one thing that the one thing I was telling somebody about this the other day. So remember, Guelph was always stacked, right? Like us and Guelph with the rivalry, and they always seem to have our number till our last year, right? They always seem they had great teams, Bertuzzi, O'Neill.
Yeah, stupid good. Those guys would trade who would score 4 goals.
I remember we were playing Guelph in Guelph. I think it was a Sunday afternoon game, and Wardy was getting us all jacked up, and he was like, the big dog's got to get off the porch, boys. It's time. We got to find a way to, like, we all together, we can do this. Jeez, I think it was like, I don't know, 13 minutes in, it was 3-0 Guelph. Like it was a packed barn, and Wardy calls timeout, skate over to the bench. And I don't know if you remember this, but the benches in Guelph, the one away bench, there was like a gap between, like this much in between, and the seats were right beside.
Yeah. And
there was a gentleman and his wife that were dressed up okay, and I was so pissed off. I'm like, this is going sideways, and it's going sideways fast. He's calling timeout. He's talking to everybody. I get a water bottle from, I don't know, Dagany or something, and I'm on the bench, and and this guy puts his head in, and he's goes to say something. I don't know if you remember this.
I don't,
because it was a little bit of a big thing, and I don't even listen. I literally emptied the whole water bottle on him. Like I just like filled him, right? Guelph guy, I don't even want to hear it. And I get back to the rink the next day, and Bobby Ertl calls me in the office saying there was an incident in the game last night, and he goes, "What happened?" And I go, "Well, I don't know. What do you mean what happened? They spanked us. I think the score was like 7-2. He's like, "No, but in between the timeout, what happened?" I go, "I don't know. Like some guy was chirping me." I said, "I friggin' soaked him with the water bottle in between the bench." And he goes, "Well, it just so happened that this guy's a long-standing Kitchener Ranger a fan, season ticket holder, and I had to write an apology. I felt so bad. So if anybody's out there and he's listening, I apologize for that again."
No, you didn't.
Oh,
No,
man.
speaking of Wardy, I he just got let go by Calgary not too long ago, but like that was a guy to this day I think about all the time and go, he was by far the best motivator and the best speaker I've ever met in my life. Like you could be down and out, pissed off, whatever, between periods, and Wardy would come in, and even if he yelled at you, you would want to go to war with him for sure, every time. And him and I had it out a bunch of times. Like I wasn't shy to speak my mind, and he certainly wasn't either. And he's the coach, obviously, and there was a respect factor. But that even though I would get into arguments with him and let's say heated discussions with him about how a game went or how curfew or whatever, I always had that respect for that guy more than probably any coach I ever had, to be honest. He was so good. Like and I knew he was going to the NHL. It was inevitable, that guy. And I think he's going to go back. I mean, he had a tough situation in Calgary, but I think he is that good a motivator and that good a hockey mind. And that's, exactly what we needed, I think, at that age. A guy like that to kind of steer you straight and go, you're a kid, you're playing this game, you have aspirations to go on to pro or whatever you want to do. I'm going to bring you there and I'm going to teach you how to do it. And I'm going to, and some of the pregame speeches, I remember leaving like, wow, this is unbelievable. This guy, he's talking about war stories and all kinds of crazy stuff. And we'd get up for the game and, the other team didn't have a chance, man. We would come out, we'd be flying coming out of the dressing room. That's how good he was at that stuff. So it was, I have a tremendous amount of respect for that man, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you once you have kids, I guess, things you look at things a little bit differently sometimes, and I mean, knowing what we went through and what a lot of people go through, and it's there's certain people that can have impacts on your life and at specific times in your life and in your career and in different job situations or whatever it is. But I mean, like, who's got that much of an impact that as a coach can have on a player or a kid at a certain age? And I mean, I mean, it was, I mean, how do you, like being a parent, you hope that your kid can, when he grows up, he can have that type of a mentor or somebody like that can
absolutely
bring out the best. And that's, I think that's probably the biggest thing. What he did is he was able to at right from day one. I mean, was never worried about, if you don't like me or not, but if you do, he brought out the best in everybody. Like, really. And if you didn't want to do it, you know what? I mean, bring out the next person that wants to, because
that's right.
Everybody on the same rope. I mean, he taught us a lot of, like, just about life in general. We can say anything. I mean, anything that we learned about, you look at it and you like certain things you apply. It's not just in hockey. I mean, you take it and you apply that in your life and life skills. And I mean, like, again, as a parent, I mean, I hope my kids could have somebody like that to be around and who can help mold them and teach them specific things as they go. Because I mean, that's really what it's all about, right?
Yeah. I don't know if you remember, we're going back to that Barrie series, but if you remember this, but we played in Barrie and we lost one of those games you were talking about. And I remember the winning goal was my fault, no question. And I lost my man or whatever. Anyway, I wake up in the paper the next day is, Wardy's speech, like, or whatever his quote from the night before, and basically Desi lost his man and they scored and blah blah blah, whatever. When we were playing that night, I guess it would have been game 5 would be my assumption, but Wardy's big thing was never go to the press, and what's in the dressing room stays in the dressing room. But anyway, I go in 20 minutes early before anybody's going to show up to the game, and I'm not going to stand for it, and I throw the newspaper down his desk and I just start laying into him that he went to the press and, unacceptable. He makes me look bad and blah, 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 blah. And I, stupid 18-year-old kid talking to a man like that, like, looking back, he should have just knocked me out. But I'm giving it to him, and he turns and he's giving it right back. And he is screaming at me. And I remember punching his fists on the desk, and he's losing his mind. And then now all the players are starting to come in for the game, right? And they're starting to file in. And if you remember, the change room was right by the coach's office at the time. So everyone's walking by the door and hearing us basically screaming at each other across the desk. And then I come out of the office and everybody's looking at me like, what the hell was that? And I don't say a word. I'm just like, going about my business. We got a game to play in an hour and a half or whatever it is. And Wardy comes in with the pregame speech and he's got his marker and he's still fuming. And I think we're facing elimination at this point. And he just writes on the board, win or lose. And he throws his marker and he storms off. He's so mad. And everybody just looks at me like, what the hell did you do? And then obviously we end up winning the game. And I went in and talked to him after, and we just kind of like shook hands and hugged it out or something. And like, hey, I respect you for doing that. And I respect you for doing that.
Yeah.
And that's the way it was. It's simple as that. Like, we got a job to do, man. We got to go out here and play the game, win the game. Yeah. And, but I tell that story all the time, especially once he got hired, like in Calgary, people started knowing who he is, right? Like, oh, that's my coach in Kitchener. And let me tell you this story.
Remember we picked those hats up? Those Roots hats. Remember the ones where we used to wear backwards?
Yeah.
It was like the dressy kind of one at that time. Remember when? So I remember going to the rink and we're all wearing them. I think Paul Doyle started it. It was like one of those things. It was all the kind of dressy, but anyways, it didn't really look good on me. But I mean, you still wear it, whatever. And I remember Pepperell had one, and he comes to me. He's like, look. He's like, go into Wardy's office, and he goes, I don't have the heart to tell him it doesn't look good on him. And I walked in, and Wardy he must have bought it as a joke, because I was sitting with the same Roots one, and it was backwards. He's eating his like rice and tuna or whatever it was, and he just stared at us. Oh man.
Yeah, he'd do a dozen eggs. Remember that? He'd do a dozen eggs in the Tupperware container, and he'd just eat those and he was jacked. And remember, he was he was like just shredded, and he's eating a dozen eggs, and we're going, wait a second, we're eating pasta and under the sun. Yeah, it was good. That was a good time, man. I respect that guy a lot. I wish, like you said, you lose touch with people, but again, it's one of those things where if it wasn't pandemic and we were all in the same neighborhood or whatever, you just let's go for a beer, and it'd be no problem, done. Yeah, we'd all end up in a beer having these conversations and laughing our heads off. Yeah. So it was good time. Good times. Who else? You keep in touch with anybody else?
I mean, I think every now and then it's especially when you're tapped into the hockey world. Sometimes like you get phone calls here and there. I mean, the Gagne call. I talked to the Gagne last year a little bit. He's got a pretty good thing going up in North Bay. He's got a fishing chartering service that he provides. Oh, really? He's got a couple of cabins on the lake and stuff like that. And I saw Pepperell. I was scouting at Silver Stick 2 years ago, and how Silver Stick, they've got the young ones, and then So a minor midget game, and a guy comes and he slaps me on the back, and I look at him, and I'm staring at him, and I'm like, he's looking at me, he's like, and I'm like, he goes, Ryan Pepperell. I go, oh. I didn't recognize him, man. I was just like, it took me a second, right? I was like, I was in, So, anyways, you run into this. It's funny, some of the guys you see around the rinks, like Craig Nelson.
Yeah, I saw him once in a rink.
Yeah, and it's funny. A lot of these guys got hockey, kids that are in hockey or daughters that are in hockey, and you run into them, and it's. Oh yeah, man! It's remember the card games we used to play? Hey, these guys be getting treatment inside. Guy that wasn't on practice, he was getting treatment, so he'd sneak somebody's keys, take the guy's car, and drive it around the block and hide it. Guys come out. Where's the car?
Fill it up with leaves. Remember that? You'd fill up the car full of leaves, and then the guy would come out of practice. His car's filled.
My car got filled up with sawdust. Do you remember that?
Sawdust. That's right.
I do remember that.
Yeah,
I walked.
It wasn't me. I swear.
Oh, I walked out. My car's in the back parking lot, the back corner facing, I don't know what that street is anymore, King or whatever. Yeah. Anyways, and they took all four tires off.
I remember
put it on blocks and filled it literally like I mean, there was like that much from the top. It was filled of sawdust.
Yeah.
Sawdust.
I remember
Like
that.
to the day I sold that car, I turned the heat on and there would still be sawdust coming out of the vent.
Those are kind of things like nowadays. I think you'd go to jail for some of that stuff. Like you can't even like some of the hazing and stuff we did. That
one of the
billets
dads would have had to help them put that on blocks. I can tell you that. They wouldn't have been able to do that.
Not many 19-year-olds know how to do that.
Oh man,
funny stuff, man. Funny stuff.
That was good.
Yeah, it's too bad looking back. Like we took a lot of those days for granted, right? You'd go to the rink sometimes and just, especially after school and a long day, and you didn't want to go to practice or you didn't want to go to the game or whatever it was. Games maybe not, but practices for sure. And it was like, I gotta do this again. Like this sucks. And looking back, I would trade that for any day I have here, man. Like no question. You know, like
out of pro, working. Like you played pro for how long?
3 years.
3 years, and you were down in the States, right? So out of pro to junior, I mean, it's you can't really compare the two, right? Because it's different, right? Like I mean, you show up and your defenseman's got 3 kids. You know what I mean? Like your goalie partner. Like my first year of pro, my goalie partner was I think he was 38 years old. I was 20.
You're hungover from the night before.
Yeah. But
three kids.
You're right. He would have had 3 kids. It was like didn't speak English because I was over in Germany, and I'm just looking at this, and it's like, but I mean, like the times in junior were so unforgettable. Like you really, and Kitchener was such a great spot. Like you said, I mean, you're sitting there, you're 45 minutes from home, an hour from home. Your parents can come up. I mean, at worst case, they can come see you play. It's just different, right? Like the memories and the bonds that you have with a lot of the guys that you play with were pretty exceptional. And then, when your career finishes and then you're sitting there and you're looking at it and you're like, yeah, real world now, right? And you got to get back into absolutely. It. And it's a different, I tell everybody, man, I said, play for as long as you can and as long as you enjoy it and as long as it makes sense, and I mean, like there's nothing better. There's no better sport. There's no better feeling than being able to play competitive hockey and getting paid to do it. And, we paid. I don't know,
$40 a week.
We probably didn't make money the way a lot of these other guys made money, but I mean, it's great times, man. Junior hockey is really like you really can't there's no replacement for it. There really isn't.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I got people now, like a lot of, you run into somebody once in a while and they'll say, oh, my kid's pretty good, but he's, I don't want him to play in the OHL. I want him to go to school because, the OHL, it's got that perception where you're not going to go to school, right? Post-secondary. And it's like, hang on a second. You're making that decision for your kid and he might regret that decision one day because, you can go to school after you play, but you can't take those years back. Like those 3 years that you spend playing wherever you get drafted are literally the best 3 years of your life. And I'm not saying school is a bad option. Don't get me wrong, because I've never done it. So I assume people that go to some universities probably have good experiences as well. But, I tell the people all the time, I said, it's not a bad option. It's a very good option. You'll grow up as a person for sure. You'll meet some lifelong friends, 100%. We talked about that. And if school is really the thing that you need, then that, nowadays that's an option for you where you can go to post-secondary. We didn't necessarily have that, but they do now. And it's like, my advice is don't discount it because it's unbelievable. And the experiences you have, you're never going to get an opportunity to have those experiences like that. Like you said, being on a team, playing hockey, being accountable to your teammates. If your man scores the OT winner in Barrie one night, those are lifelong experiences, man. They're stories you can tell like this 25 years later, but they're experiences you're going to keep with you for the rest of your life. So It's,
I agree with you. There's no better. I mean, to have the opportunity to play in front of, I don't know, 20 to 40 to 50 NHL scouts every single night, playing the best, junior league in the world. I don't care what anybody says, and I mean, I tell a lot of my students and a lot of the parents, like, I mean, they'll often come up to me and ask and say, what is the best? And then, I find the best answer is just say, like, don't discard anything right now. Wait and see where you're at that given time, and wait and see the opportunities that are in front of you. Because, I mean, the OHL does a fantastic job of getting scholarships. It's not the same as it was when we were playing, where top guys only got it. If you play, their scholarship programs are fantastic now. And I mean, if you're at the, like, look at you, perfect example. You didn't have any real aspirations of not aspirations, but when you showed up to the Kitchener Rangers, I mean, you probably weren't thinking about, showing up and doing as well as you did. And then, having been to make a decision right then. 100%. And I mean, like you were, in my opinion, you were an all-star in the league. You were, a top line guy for a number of years. I mean, you've grown up, you've got great, you gain so many great experiences as you go through it. And then at the end of it, if you decide if things don't work out, well, you still got school to fall back on. I mean, there really, in my opinion, really isn't much of any other opportunities that are out there that give you that support and that, I mean, there's a lot of landmines you gotta jump through to get those scholarships nowadays too, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, it's and with the US doing as well as they've been doing in hockey, I mean, it's different, right? I don't think they're giving it out as much as with a lot of different schools and what they're looking for as well. So it's
so would you say, hands down, when we played, Kitchener was the best city to play in?
I would say, I mean, I can't speak for other places, but that Wolf in Sudbury that used to go from side to side when they used to score that. I don't know how many people have tried to steal that thing, but yeah, man, I Kitchener was, I think there's a lot of real good nowadays. I think, you've got your Londons, you've got your Barrie.
For sure.
Barrie's really, really, I mean, that was the newest rink that came in when we were playing the Molson Center. I mean, that place was rocking, man. And what, up here, living up here, they've got a different clientele too now. Like, it's a lot of younger families that are here. So things have changed and the city's growing so much, but Kitchener was phenomenal. Like, we had that place. Do you remember, I think it was after the Barrie series, actually. It was either the Barrie series or the Sarnia series that our last year. We ended up winning both in Game 7. And remember, we were signing autographs in the hallway of the lower part of the Odd. Yeah. And you remember the amount of fans that jumped, like they had to kept pushing the tables back because the fans they kept coming in, like they kept coming in, and the tables were crushing us against the walls. Yeah. Remember that?
Yeah, I do. The fans. Hey, listen, the Rangers had me back a few years ago to drop the puck before a game. I don't know if you've done that, but
no, I've never got that phone call.
Yeah, you should get that phone call one day.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So you should do that. So I bring my kids on the ice, and and we're gonna drop the puck. And I'm telling you, probably the coolest experience of my life. And aside from weddings and kids' births and all that stuff. So like, so I just remember standing there and they're talking about me on the PA system, and I don't know if they're showing highlights or not, but anyway, they're going through that, and I remember people like still knowing my name and recognizing, and guys were standing up. Not everybody, obviously, but the few people standing, giving ovations, and I'm just thinking, this is 20 odd years later, and you people still remember what we did back then.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was standing on the ice going, this is so cool. And these people still remember this stuff and are respecting it, right? They're standing.
That's awesome. And you know what? Your kids are awesome. Old enough. Your kids are old enough that they were probably able to be like, Daddy, this is you, eh? Like this,
Yeah.
like, I don't believe this, eh?
Oh yeah, it was
That's
it was
awesome.
cool,
That's
man. It was
cool.
yeah, it was great. Yeah, I'm sure you'll get that phone call one day.
That's awesome.
It was good.
Do you remember when we were playing? I think we played Owen Sound, and we had it was at home, and we were playing. We had it the next game. We were playing on TSN against Ottawa. That was our last year. So we were at home, and game was getting chippy. We were beating Owen Sound. I think it was 4-1 or something. And rest in peace, Dan Snyder. Remember I was skating to the bench on a delayed penalty, and they were by the bench, and I rubbed Snyder like this. I elbowed him as I went through him, and he dropped his gloves. And he came at me, and everybody swarmed in, and I think we had 4 guys suspended that game, and we had to play on TSN. And Wardy was so mad at me. He was so mad. Don't you remember? He came in the room, and he was losing it, and he was so mad. And he goes, "What were you thinking?" And anyways, we played Ottawa. He goes, taking us 3 years to get on TSN, and you go ahead and do this. And I think like we ended up playing. I think like we were short 4 or 5 guys because it was like it was almost like a line brawl, right? I didn't get suspended, but I kind of made my way through.
That sounds about right. That's how I did it for 3 years, and Pep would just beat somebody up. I would do that and then start it and then run away, and Pep would beat somebody up. Good times.
Yeah, man.
All right, Blitz. Well, listen, I think we've done some reminiscing.
When's part 2 coming? We can open up this.
I could do this all day.
We can do this all day. Hey,
maybe we should. We'll start
hey?
interviewing other guys and start telling their stories. Bring back some old names, man. Bring Rourke in. Get him to tell stories.
Oh, there's a whole other thing right there. 16 years old. What did he have? 4 tattoos? That was awesome.
All right, Blitz. Well, listen, great talking to you, bud. Good to see you. Hopefully we can get together soon, have a beer, and reminisce a little more. Yeah, that was fun. I enjoyed that. Thanks, bud.
That's great, buddy. Yeah, man. Great to see you. Give the best to the family, and stay safe, and hope to see you soon. If you want, you can follow me at David Belitski on Instagram or David Belitski on Facebook. And thanks to everybody out there listening to Club 63. Hope to see you guys soon, and keep your stick on the ice.
Hope you enjoyed it.
Enjoy it.